All right, thank you. All right then. So move to approve as recommended by the interim superintendent of school, P1 through P20, comma, E1. Can I have a motion and a second? Or any comments?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So Angela, do roll call.
No,
We
go
had no
in.
comment.
No, now you have to do the comments.
You must have at least a brief discussion.
Oh, well, I figured as we go along, around, people can have their comments. Okay.
The discussion should be
All right,
before
all right,
the roll
go
call.
ahead.
Board
Discussion,
comments.
board
Open to
comments.
board comments.
Anyone? Okay, Ms. Sullivan?
Yes. I want to comment, and I don't know if this is the appropriate part to ask questions, but I did write 3 detailed analyses of some spot curriculum that I reviewed. I don't know if people in the audience are aware that I am a professor. I've been a professor since 1999. I write about 10 to 15 curricula a year. So I felt, since I had that expertise and I saw some things that concerned me, I did raise those questions and I sent those to our curriculum director and I sent them to Mr. Rashika. I had no response from Mr. Rashika at all. I realize he's ill, but our policies say amply that we are supposed to interact with our superintendent. We're supposed to ask questions of our superintendent. He's supposed to be here as the captain of our ship. And so as a lawyer for 37 years, it makes me really uncomfortable that he's not here to answer these questions. And it makes me more uncomfortable that I have to direct those questions to Mr. Sutherland because I don't want to put him on the spot either. And I kind of liken it to a captain of a ship who's sailing in the Antarctic or near the North Pole and you see a giant iceberg and you ask your engineer in the boiler room, should we turn left? And he says, sure, we have plenty of engine oil over here and this one we can turn left. But what he doesn't know is that what the captain knows is that there may be some holes on that side of the ship or there may be some difficulties with steering on that side. So if you don't have the captain here, it's really hard for me when it's amply demonstrated in the policy that he's supposed to be here to answer my questions and concerns. So that's the first problem I have because there's no leader. There's no person for me to ask questions about. I did get a response from Mr. Sutherland on one of my 3 emails. He actually took 2 of my suggestions. In one of the emails he told me orally. The other 2 emails I didn't get a response to. And my comments were directed about not just DEI, not just about statutory obligations, but lots of things. For example, I did think, and I said it last week and I'll say it again, I don't think there's enough critical thinking in the discussions where we're adding things about LGBT and that we're adding things about diversity and inclusion and equity. So I'll give you an example of something that was in the curriculum because nobody's actually said an example. So there was an example in one of the courses that you could, as a teacher, refer to a video called Doll Babies. I said, what is Doll Babies? I never had heard of that. So I clicked on—
What was that? Doll Babies?
Doll Babies. DOLLBABIES. I clicked on the link and it was a video that was prepared by, I guess, ostensibly an academic group that had studied something that might have been presented in the lower courts when they were bringing up a case called Brown versus Board of Education, which is the main case on school desegregation. And it was done, I think, around the time that the Brown versus Board of Education decision was had. They gave babies the size, they gave dolls the size of babies, like real life babies that had black skin and white skin. And they drew certain conclusions based on what children said when they gave them these baby dolls. Is this doll more important than you? What color doll do you identify with? And I said, gee, I've never heard of that because I actually teach constitutional law. We study Brown versus Board of Education. I've never heard of this exercise in the lower court's decisions. So I researched more and I found some white papers that actually debunked the survey. And the problem was that the survey was poorly collected. It didn't collect numerous and various students so that they could be representative of the samples that they were gathering the information from. And then there was some debunking because they actually tried that doll baby survey in the north. And they found that the results weren't consistent with the conclusions that they were trying to make. That's, in logic, that's called generalization. So you collect a sample, you draw a conclusion from it. You do have some causation issues that you have to link, but then you tell the community, this is what we think about this. We think that this demonstrates that there was systemic bias that was so embedded that it was part of children's understanding in the South. And that may be true, but they didn't demonstrate it right in the survey. That's at least what the white paper said. So I presented that to Mr. Sutherland, and I believe he took it out of the curriculum. So that was actually both heartful and disappointing to me, because if I could find something like that so easily that could be taken out, then I worried about everything else. Another example is there was a book in 9th grade English honors, I think it was. It might have been another course. Not a book, I'm sorry. It was a story called Rosh Hashanah. And it was an ancient story from Chinese literature that talked about a samurai warrior who went into a forest and his wife was brutally raped, killed, and sexually assaulted. And I thought, hey, this is a lot for 9th grade English. And the lesson that was supposed to be drawn from the book, it was made into a play on Broadway, was that depending on your perspective, you would draw a different conclusion about what happened to the samurai. He ended up dying too in the forest. So I believe he took that out too. And again, I got a little worried because it was so easy to punch holes in this. Then I was starting to get even more worried about what else was there. Other comments I had, I mean, I don't want to go through everything, but no one said examples. I've heard complaints that we don't have examples. I also never saw the curriculum as a whole. So what you saw on the web was only those courses that the administration is suggesting that we change. That's hard for me too. It's hard for me as a lawyer to see, okay, I'm just going to get this little snippet, but perhaps there's ample discussion of critical thinking about, using the doll babies example somewhere else that might be better described. I don't have the whole curriculum, and I've asked for it, and it's been denied to me. I asked for the Google Forms, that's been denied to me. Please don't respond, because I don't want to take up your time. I don't know if diversity, equity, and inclusion is already there. I don't know. I don't know why in all the references to LGBT, there's LGBTQ plus. It may be perfectly appropriate. The statute only calls for LGBT. I don't know. Maybe it's totally appropriate to put in Q plus at the end. I'm just not sure because I don't have a superintendent to answer these questions for me. It's true the folders were populated overnight on Thursday. Only reason why I think I have personal knowledge about that was because when I was writing these detailed analysis, and I didn't go through everything, I didn't have time because it takes about a good hour to 2 hours to look at each curriculum. I sent an email to Mr. Sutherland. I said, there's several folders that are not populated, and then around 3 in the morning, all those folders got populated. So it could be totally innocent. Maybe he just wasn't ready. Maybe they didn't present them to him, but that worried me too. So I was getting worried about things that were missing. I wasn't permitted to print or copy the proposed curriculum. I couldn't download it, save it, put it on, print it out, because I'm an academic. I live in paper, so there's paper all over, and I'll have the draft in front of me, and then I'll be able to look in my computer to see what the white papers say about this exercise, or is this a sufficient exercise in critical thinking for that. And I asked, could you please allow me to download and copy these, and that was denied to me as well. Some of the maps that were linked to, for example, were listing Yugoslavia still as a country. That worried me. Yugoslavia hasn't been a country for 20 years. Some of the links were 5 years old to exercises even for the LGBT references. It worried me that Mr. Sutherland and Mr. Morano had a private meeting with Flow Forward when our board counsel has given us advice that we cannot meet with them privately, that they are here as a member of the public on equal footing as you. That worried me too, because now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the parents haven't even had private meetings with Mr. Sutherland and Mr. Morano, so that's causing me concern. Another area is for the special needs community, which is, near to 20% of our overall district population. I saw a vast imbalance in the references to DEI that talked about, for example, gender, identity, but there was hardly anything about disabled children. There were just, maybe I didn't see it, maybe my superintendent's not here to assure me to say, oh no, it was here, it was there, it was there. I just didn't see it as overflowing as I saw some of the other references, so that worried me. To give you an idea of where I thought there was a problem with perception about systemic racism, it's actually labeled in one of the courses. They ask a question, how do you think systemic racism, I think sexism and something else affects Y, whatever that was. And I thought, wow, in my critical thinking class, that has an implicit premise in it. That the premise is that there is systemic racism, and I don't know that maybe the person can set that up appropriately in their example, but they hadn't offered that information at all. So this is what I think parents are perceiving, that there are missing premises, that there are just throwaways, and then we have teachers that we're not really sure because there's fear about, one of the parents had said something about the survey. So these things all worry me. The bylaws do require us to take a pretty, in my view, a pretty large part in improving curriculum. It's probably, next to appointing the superintendent, one of the biggest tasks we have. And so for these reasons, I'm very reluctant to approve the curriculum tonight because I just have too many concerns. I have no one to talk to. My inquiries were not responded to, and I just don't feel comfortable at this time voting on it. Thank you.